Hi there, my name is Brent Smith, and I'm the Common Constitutionalist, and you're listening to the Common Constitutionalist Weekend Audio Podcast. Yep, no video again this week. After putting in another long day of painting the office, I'm just not up for it. So sorry about that, folks, but at least we've got the audio version. So today I'm going to be discussing two topics. The first is the Squad endorses an old white guy, and second is Syria will backfire on us. I'll discuss that today on the Weekend Common Constitutionalist Audio Podcast. Be right back.
You are listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
All right, I'm back. So why would the Nouveau-Politburo endorse Bernie Sanders, an old curmudgeon white guy? Well, last week the Squad, or three of the four Squad members less Ariana Pressley, announced that they are endorsing Bernie Sanders for president. And to many, including me, it was quite a surprise. But I really wasn't thinking about it. My shock was just a knee-jerk reaction, probably like everyone else. And I thought, like I'm sure many others, why would the Squad, who are the embodiment of race and feminist identity politics, embrace and endorse the oldest, the whitest, the straightest, and the most monogamous man? I mean, they have to know that Bernie Sanders doesn't have a prayer of winning the nomination. I mean, just look at the poll numbers. He's been steadily sinking in the polls, and then there's the whole heart attack thing, so he's not exactly the picture of health, and he's like 106 in the shade or something like that. I don't remember what it is. So why would they back a loser? And then I sat down and pushed my incredulity aside and started thinking, okay, so they don't want to take a backseat to anyone, the Squad, that is. Certainly not a leftist progressive female who could co-opt their entire agenda and potentially displace them. Say like front-runner Elizabeth Woodrow Warren. Why Woodrow, you ask? Well, there you go. Good question. To really find out, you can read my article from August, I think it was like mid-August, at WorldNet Daily, coincidentally entitled Elizabeth Woodrow Warren, the Scariest Candidate. Basically, the simple answer is that it's because she's the living embodiment of our country's most evil and scariest president, Woodrow Wilson. All right, so back to the Squad. Anyone who's followed the Squad would also know that they don't want to promote or campaign for anyone necessarily but themselves. And we also know that progressives generally are incredibly selfish and self-centered. The only ones the Squad want to expend any energy and capital on is themselves, of course. So who better to outwardly endorse? I say outwardly because, I don't think they're really endorsing the guy, but that's just my opinion. Someone like Bernie, who is equally as communist as they are, I guess. Or at least one that admits it. Now he doesn't admit that he's a communist. He's a democratic socialist. He's a commie. I mean, he honeymooned in the Soviet Union. He pines away for communist Cuba and their superior health care, don't you know? And you could nickname him Bernie Sandinista because he backed the brutal, ruthless communist Sandinista regime in Nicaragua back in the 80s. Not 1880s, 1980s. Ha ha. And Bernie, like the Squad, is equally as phony, but more importantly, somebody who has no chance of winning. But what if he did win the nomination? Well, that would be considered to the Squad, I think, a win-win, as if Sanders by some miracle actually did secure the nomination, that is. I mean, he's already demonstrated how cowardly and malleable he is. He won't take crap from any other men, of course, but women of color, well, that's another story. If you recall, last year he was giving some speech in a park or something like that, and some black or female Black Lives Matter protester jumped up on the stage, and this was as Sanders was at the microphone, and he just withered away. He didn't know what to do. So even if he did end up winning the nomination, the Squad would no doubt take credit for it, and then he would be completely owned by the squad. He would, in effect, be their commie puppet. But as probably the squad has figured out, we can't say that about Elizabeth Warren. She's as communist as Bernie, or as fake communist as Bernie, but she would no way she would put up with the squad attempting to gain control over her, so to speak. And remember the old saying from the Highlander, there can be only one. And that one would be Elizabeth Woodrow Warren, not the squad. So that, in my opinion, is why they're not endorsing Elizabeth Warren, and they are endorsing the old white commie curmudgeon. And there's something that all communist leaders and would-be communist leaders have in common. Their lust for power and control, to obtain and maintain power and control. And the women of the squad are no different, and they've developed a rapid addiction to the power. I mean, you can see it. But look at these 4, or 3, I guess, in this particular case. These women of the squad have come from basically being obscure nobodies to overnight sensations, receiving adulation from actual fans like rock stars, and they're not going to give that up for anyone, certainly not some old white woman, even if she is part Indian. And I guess you got to look at it from their point of view, the squad that is, that unlike Warren and Sanders, who have been in this business forever and are quite well known, these 3 are new to money and power, and they obviously love it a lot, which was why I've coined the name Nouveau-Politburo, like the old Soviet Politburo. And like all communist leaders, the squad members are a bunch of phonies. They, like Warren and Sanders, are perfect communists with their do as I say, not as I do platform. It's how all despotic regimes act. And the squad's no different, Bernie would be no different, and Elizabeth Warren would be no different. They shower themselves in riches as their nation. Those who are not connected suffer from their dictatorial mandates. You think Bernie, when he was rushed into to surgery to have for his heart attack, you think he was on Obamacare? No, I don't think so. You think he flew a jet down to Cuba to have heart surgery? No, I don't think so. See, that's what I mean. Do as I say, not as I do. Bottom line, the squad is backing Sanders because, this is my opinion, A, he can't win, so they don't have to worry about working very hard for very long, and they can get back to the business of self-promotion while looking like party people. B, if he does happen to win, they own him, so they'll have control over him. And C, they won't be overshadowed by another female like Warren, who they can't control. And that is why I think they're backing the old curmudgeon commie Bernie Sanders. Now let's take a break. I'll be right back.
You're listening to The Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
Okay, I'm back. So, next topic. Last topic, second topic, whatever. Syria will backfire on us. It's almost a lead pipe guarantee, depending on how we play this thing. So how do I know it's going to backfire? Easy, because these types of foreign entanglements always end poorly, if not in freaking disaster. It's why George Washington warned us about getting involved in all the world's problems in foreign entanglements. At the very least, we'll end up with a permanent footprint after the fighting stops, because we know the second we leave, they'll start fighting again. But we just continue to keep sticking our noses into everybody's business and making things worse. It would be one thing if we could just figure out a way to go in there, stop the bad guys, and then leave. But the problem is that every time that we stop the bad guys, and we leave, it leaves a power vacuum, and the vacuum is always consumed by bad guys, or worse guys. Or we don't leave, like after World War II. How many troops do we still have in Europe protecting the European border from the Soviet Union, which isn't anymore? How many troops do we have on the 38th parallel between South Korea and North Korea? What was that, like 60 years ago, that war, something like that? 70 years ago? I don't know. So we either can't leave ever, or we leave and we create an Egypt or a Syria. Syria is going to be one of them. Egypt or a Libya or Iraq or any one of the number of countries that we've gone in. We've ousted the bad guy, and then we leave, and then worse guys take up power in his place. It just never fails. Now, don't get me wrong. I get it. There's bad people all over the world, and they are brutalizing their own populations. And and we're good people, and good people always want to help. But unfortunately, you can't run a country like that. We keep hearing the saying that we can't be the police force of the world, but we are, in fact, the police force of the world, because if not for us, then who? And that's the problem. We just can't sit by and let things happen. We have to step in. I understand that from the heart, but from the head and from a government standpoint, you can't run a country like that. And then there's the Kurds, who we've allied ourselves with. And we keep hearing that we must help the Kurds, just as we did help the Kurds in Iraq. But what almost no one is saying is that the Syrian Kurds aren't the same as the Iraqi Kurds. The Iraqi Kurds are wonderful people, and they were wonderful and have been wonderful allies. We got lucky for once with the whole enemy of my enemy thing. But we don't really even know who the freaking enemy is over there. But what I do know is that the Kurds are not our friends. They are radical communists, and they are terrorists. And we just happen to align ourselves with them because of Assad, and now because of Turkey. But unfortunately, sometimes you just gotta step back and let stuff happen, I hate to say. If Saddam, Mubarak, and Gaddafi were still in power, yeah, it would be tough on the citizens, but they would certainly, frankly, they would be no worse off than they are now in all three of those countries. And the world would be a better place because those guys were despots within their own country, short of Saddam trying one time to invade Kuwait and got the crap beat out of him, and then we left. But at least those despotic dictators could hold down the terrorist aspect and the other people that move in, like Iran, to fill that vacuum. Unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. And then we're going to arm the Kurds, we're going to train the Kurds, and then the Kurds, being the terrorists that they are, once we leave, will turn on us. And everybody's going to say, geez, I can't understand why. Well, why? Because they're freaking terrorists, that's why. And they're going to align themselves with other communists. Duh. Remember the Mujahideen back in, I think it was the 80s, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and we armed, and the CIA helped out the Mujahideen, which is the plural for Mujahid, which is basically the term, it means in English, one who engages in jihad. Son of a gun. And had that work out. Al-Qaeda, a number of terrorist groups came out of that, and all the excuse that the Americans abandoned them. Well, that's crap, because they're terrorists. They'll give any excuse. And I can foresee that this is what's going to happen. The Kurds are going to either align themselves with a new ISIS or something after we leave. Either that, like I said, or we have a permanent footprint in that region. We don't need any more freaking permanent footprints. We don't need any more soldiers or Marines or airmen or Navy personnel like special operators being killed in that region for frankly no reason at all, because there's no exit strategy, there's no end game, there's no nothing. So count me as a skeptic for this whole thing, dead set against it. We should have gotten out of there long ago. And I'm sorry, but we've just got to let some things be and let what's going to happen, I hate to say. And if Assad remains in power, at least he'll put a cap on the terrorist element in that region, just like Gaddafi did, just like Saddam Hussein did, and just like Mubarak did. They were all really bad guys, and once they leave, once they're out, then the really worse guys take over. So that's what's going to happen this time. Mark my freaking words if this continues the way it's going. So there's no other way to do this other than getting out while the getting's good. There is no getting good, unfortunately. You just got to get out and let whatever's going to happen is going to happen, regardless of who's there, we're not there. It doesn't make any difference. You can't fight the ideology. You can try and stamp it out temporarily, but you can't fight it. Because it will always reemerge somewhere, somehow. And these guys, unlike us Americans with very short memories and very short attention spans, these dudes have been doing this for thousands of years. What's another decade or so? So what to these guys? So that's all I've got. My name is Brent Smith. I'm the Common Constitutionalist. Thank you very much for listening. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye.